Alright, here we are. We are about to have some fun with InDesign. But before we start having fun, we need to just set something up here. So I want you to go to, with our Bezier curves template open, I want you to go to View, Grids and Guides, and select the Lock Guides feature. And by doing that, these guides that I've preset for you will now be in place, and whenever we go to click on it, they will always be there for us. Okay, let's start making our first shape. So I'm going to zoom in, Control plus, and get my little swatches palette out of the way. Don't need that right now. I'm going to go to my pen tool, and your pen tool is probably right there, right up on this little 2 palette. There it is there. Looks like a fountain pen. You're going to click that and make sure that just the pen tool is selected. Notice that when you click and hold it down, you get a number of different options. We'll get to some of these others, but right now just focus on the pen tool. Once you come to our little grid here and our top line in the center, I'm going to click once and let go. And then slide the mouse over, the cursor over, and then I'm going to click and let go, come down to the bottom, I'm going to click and let go, and up to this point here, click and let go, and then up to the top, and your mouse should be actually having a little circle by the pen to indicate a closed path. You're about to close the path by clicking that, and ta-da, we have closed our path. At this stage, I'm going to go back to the pen tool. I'm going to hold that down and go to the Convert Direction Point tool. And come to this little point here, and I'm going to click into it. And by clicking into it, I can pull out our little Bezier curve tools that pull our lines in the direction of that particular Bezier point. And I'm going to go into this point here, and I'm going to click into it and pull up this time. It doesn't matter. You'll notice that if your point is spinning around and maybe you've pulled down, you get that shape. Just spin it around and pull it up towards the top. And just like that, you get a crescent moon. I'm going to open up my swatches palette at this stage. I want to make that a yellow fill, and I'm going to turn off the black line. I don't want a black line. Click the black arrow and have a quick little view. Yes, I have a crescent moon. I'm going to slide that out of my way. Control 0 for full view. And then I'm going to come back into the center of my page here. And this time, I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and we're going to create a number of points along this line. So off to the center line on the top of our grid, and click and let go. Move over one intersection, click and let go. Next point to the left, click and let go. Down to the bottom, click and let go. Up to the far right, click and let go. Moving towards the center, next intersection over, click and let go, and I'm going to close my path. I'm going to click and let go. Now I'm going to move to my white arrow, my direct selection tool. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. You notice that my point here wasn't quite on the mark. Now I can actually select any point now with our direct selection tool, and I can move that point around anywhere I want. Just want to snap it right into that point there like that. Evens up the line nice. Now I know that that element is selected. It actually fills a little point. The other points along my path are little white points. This one is a filled point, so it is selected. I want to select 2 more points. I need to hold down the Shift key and click that point, and holding down the Shift keys again, and click the far right point. So I now have 3 points selected. I've taken my finger off the Shift key, and now I'm going to click that one point and pull down, and all 3 move at the same time. At this stage, I'm going to go to my pen tool, hold that down, get my Convert Direction Point tool. slide over to the top of this particular shape, and I'm going to slide to the left and do the same to the other point here and slide to the left. There. Coming down to the left hand side, again I'm going to click into the point, and this time pulling down, and I got a nice round curve for the roundness of this shape, but I got a bit of an extra bulge. I don't like that bulging corner in my heart. Now I can go and actually click this Bezier point, and I can tuck that down. I have free control now that I've pulled them both out and they pull out uniformly. This one, now that they're out, you work with them independently, and I'm going to bring this one down a little bit so it's not up there, and I'm going to do the same over here on the right hand side. Notice that what happens when I pull down, I get that centric loop. So this time I'm going to pull up, and again going to that Bezier point that I pulled out earlier, I'm just going to pull that down a bit, and there. Get a nice rounded shape heart. I want to fill this. First off, I don't want a black line, so I'm going to select that and go to my red, because hearts should be red, not black. Red hearts. I'm going to go my black arrow. I'm going to select that element. I'm going to go back to Control 0 for the full screen view, and I'm going to slide that out of the way. Next shape, zooming in, and I'm going to go to my rectangle tool here, and I'm just going to create a rectangle, which turns out to be a square, using these particular guides. And I'm going to click over to my pen tool, and notice what happens when I do that. I now just have our 4 points represented for this particular shape. I need to make sure that it is selected to do these next steps, and it is selected because these points are actually highlighted. I'm going to go in, and along this path I'm going to actually move my pen tool onto the path, and you should see your pen tool turn to a little plus sign beside it. And when that happens, that means that you are on the path and you are now adding a point to that path. So click, and I slide over to the left hand side, and again halfway down that path I'm going to click, and along the bottom the same thing, find that point and click on that path, and on the right hand side. So now I have a total of 8 points on this shape. Go to my white arrow, and I'm going to click off and then click on. So I just grab that 1 point, pull down 1 point, and I'm going to pull in, and another point and pull up, and 1 more point and slide on over. And at this stage I have a 4-point star. And my pen tool, hold that down, convert direction point, and this time I'm going to click into our tips of our stars points, and I'll pull out, and I'll hold down the shift key as I do this, so I get a nice clean angle, and I'm going to do this on all the points, pulling out to the right this time, stretching it out, and same again, and one more. There we go. Nice 4-leaf clover. Again, I'm going to fill this with green and get rid of the black frame. Click the black arrow, and I can go to Control 0 and slide that out of the way. The next shape we will draw, we'll go to the rectangle tool. When you hold down the rectangle tool, holding it down, there we go. We have the ellipse tool and the polygon tool hidden underneath there. I'm going to click the polygon tool, and the default when you click and drag across. I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I do this. Should be a hexagon. So we could create hexagons, but if you follow our theme, we got our hearts, our moons, our clovers. We need some stars, not hexagons. So I'm going to delete my hexagon, and this time I'm going to hold down that so I can see polygon, and then I double click the polygon option there, and here we have our polygon settings. We have our number of sides, 6, and 0 star inset, which creates in fact a hexagon. I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to change it to 5 sides or 5 points, and then I'm going to include an inset of 25%. Click OK. And now, when I hold down the Shift key at the same time, I click and drag, I can create a beautiful magical star. I'm going to fill that with blue, take off the outline there. If I want to reduce the size of that star, click the black arrow, holding down the Shift key, and I can adjust the size of that, no problem. While I'm here, I'm going to actually just show you a little rotation. Notice that with that element selected and I come to the corners of the star, I get a little curved set of arrows. That means I can actually rotate it in place, and as I'm rotating, it's giving me the value of my rotation. So I can use that as my rotation tool, or I can actually type in a value here of some kind if I want to rotate a specific amount. If I want a little bit more dramatic star, I'm going to go back to my polygon tool. I'm going to double click that open, and this time I'm going to change it to 37 sides, and this time the inset is going to be a phenomenal 65%. Click OK. You ready for this one? Here we go. I'm going to hold down the Shift key for this, click and drag, and oh my gosh, look at that star. I'm going to take none for the frame or the stroke, and then I'm going to add some yellow for that. Nice big bold sun. That's one bold star. Shift key, make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to drag that off. Next thing, go to your little tool palette on the left, and we're going to change it to the ellipse tool. And with the ellipse tool, we can hold down the Shift key and drag across, and we can create perfect circles. Notice up here we have this particular diameter being 5.34 inches. I've also have my link tool selected. It's you can see it's broken link, and now it is linked. That means the width and height are, if you make a change there, they're both going to change. What I'd like to do, that circle needs to be selected. If it's not selected, click your black arrow and select the line. I'm going to change the diameter of this particular circle. I'm going to make it a 4.75 inch circle. And then I'm going to click and drag and create another circle, again holding the Shift key so they are the same. And this one I'm going to make 4.5 inches. And I click and drag another circle, again holding down the Shift key. This one I'm going to make 1.625 inches. And then one more, holding on the Shift key, click and drag, and this one is going to be 0.5625 inches. 0.5625 inches. And once I have all those, I'm going to go by black arrow. I'm going to click and drag across all of them so that all 4 circles are selected. And now I'm going to align these elements. Now you might have some align tools across your information palette up here. If not, go to Window, Object Layout, and Align, and you get another little palette floating here, and here we have our align objects, and on the vertical, I'm going to align them center, and on the horizontal, I'm going to align them center. And when I do that, quite magically, I get a fabulous looking CD. Now, I'm going to select and drag across all those. I'm going to change the fill to white on all of them. So great, they're all filled. Now, if I want to change the color of just one of those elements, and because it's grouped, whenever I go to, I haven't grouped it yet. That's what I want to do. Select and right-click, group. There's also a group option off object as well. So now that these elements are grouped, I can, yes, move them around nice and easily, but if I go to change a color I want to change a color or something within one of those circles, it's going to apply to all of them, and I don't want that. If instead of ungrouping and regrouping, and I just want to change one element, I can go to my white arrow this time, and click off, and then click on, and I've clicked on the line of the second circle inside, and I can change that to a particular color. Notice the other elements don't change, just that that one circle changes, and the other elements, the other circles we've included there are white. We can also place an image in there. I'm going to go place, and I've got a Lucky Charms PNG file in there. I can click open, and sure enough, our little Lucky Charms element comes up. I can hold down the shift key and make that a little bit bigger, and I can put my little Lucky Charms as my CD label, for example. So with that there, I'm going to close out of my align tool, don't need that, black arrow, and I can slide my little Lucky Charms CD off to the side. Back to our circles, there we've got our ellipse tool selected, that's good. And I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to create a circle. Right now, if you take a look at your swatches, yours might be different, but mine is 0 fill or none fill, and I've got a black stroke for a line. I'm going to pull that swatches palette off, just grab that little gray area and move that off there. Now, the other palette I'd really like to have up is the gradient palette. And there are lots of different palettes underneath your palette options up here. If you are looking for a specific window or a specific palette, just go to your window. And I am looking for gradients. Gradients. Where's my gradients? It might be under one of these tabs here. There it is, under color, gradient. And I'm going to float that down there. Now I can convert this to a gradient fill simply by clicking the gradient, and it applies that fill across. I can adjust this gradient by sliding this, and it adjusts the intensity where the midway point of that gradient is. I can again slide these little swatches right over, and it puts more white and less black in one area. So lots of control. Whoops, I added another little tab, color tab by accident. If I don't want that, I'll just pull it down. I can adjust the angle of this. I can swap it so it goes from black to the left, white to the right. And I can actually type in a value. I can type in 45-degree angle for that gradient, and it does it at a 45-degree angle. Change that to 0. The other tool I can also use here is there's a gradient tool over here, and this allows you to control the intensity of where you want the highlight to be and where you want the shadow to be. So I'm just holding down the shift key as I do this, and you can see it starts to make that adjustment. I can also adjust the direction with that too, And here I've held down the shift key and gone left to right and created that gradient that way. I'm going to go to our swatches palette up here, and I'm going to turn the stroke of that circle off, so I've got none. Come back to and make sure the fill is foremost. Now I've got a linear fill here. This one at the time I'm going to put in a gradient, or sorry, a radial fill. And a radial fill is just like that. It radiates from one center point. And again, I've got a lot of control with this. I can adjust the intensity how I want to. The other thing I would like to be able to use here is our little gradient tool off the left. And again, this assigns where the highlight will be and where the shadow is, or the dark area is going to be. So here I'm going to create a little ball by clicking in the upper left hand corner and dragging across that circle. And notice that we've got our highlight and our shadow, so it actually looks like it's a three-dimensional object. And I can just adjust that. I'm just clicking and dragging and trying to find what that best, most optimum option is. Notice that when I do drag even past the circle, I lose the darkness and it gets beyond the actual perimeter of the shape itself. I'm going to try to bring it down like that. That's not bad. Click black arrow, click off, and hit W, and you can really see how well that feature works. Back to W, and take my ball and make it a smaller ball, and holding down the shift key, click, and I'm going to test that ball. 1, 2, 3, bounce off the page. And grab another circle again, go to my ellipse tool, holding down the shift key and create a circle. I'm going to click in the gradient fill, and again I'm going to change that to linear just so it's nice and easy to see. And any color that we place in our swatches palette here, we can actually include in our gradient, but it has to be in our swatches palette first. We do have a color palette, but until we actually choose a color and create a color, it's not going to get into our swatches palette, or we're not going to be able to use it in our gradient palette. So just going to get it out of the way. And all I need to do to, instead of using whites and grays, I just click my color that's in my swatches palette and I pull it down and simply place it into the gradient. And I'm going to just bring in as many colors as I can here. Now there is a very colorful circle. If there's a color on here I don't want to use, I don't want the white, I just click it and pull it down. Pull it down. There we go. And the black, I'm going to pull it down. So we've got a lot of color. Let's have fun with InDesign and just keep adding more colors to your palette. Whoops. Go back to that. There we go. There. Now, if at this stage, at any stage, if you create a shape and you think, oh, you know what, I don't want a circle, I don't want a heart, I don't want a star, I want to change that shape. If you go to Object and come down to the Convert Shape, you can very quickly and easily convert that to a rectangle, for example. Very quick, very easy, don't have to redraw the whole thing. I'm going to reduce that size a little bit, and I'm going to slide that over to our workspace over there. Up next on our agenda, working with some text. Go to my text tool, and I'm going to use text right across the whole page here. And I want to get an idea of working with text and imagining that I've got an ad here, and I want to type in some text to see what it is going to look like. But you can see that I've got a lot of text space to fill in here to see what all this text is going to look like. What I can do is use a really cool little tool here. Under type, I can say fill with placeholder text. And like magic, I have all of these words that have been populated. I can't read any of the words. They're all in Greek or Latin or some non-English language and don't make any sense at all. So, but it's just there to give us an indication of what our type looks like, how it's going to work with other elements. We can certainly, whoops, oh, boom, boom, there, get it all back. We can certainly select all that text and make some changes. We can start to choose and decide what font we want to work with. I'm going to quickly grab Eris Light. Maybe change the font size. I'm going to change to 11, maybe 10 for body copy weight. And the other thing I can do with this text box is now that I got a sense of how much copy I'm going to be using in this space. I also want to get a sense of how I'm going to align this space, and this isn't a very good alignment. I don't want copy going all the way to the left of my page, all the way to the right. I'm going to use what magazines and newspaper use. I want to use columns to break up the flow of this text. So I can go to Object, Text Frame Options. I've got the object selected. I'm actually working in that. And I can change the number of columns to 2. And I'll just slide this over for a preview so you can see that I've got 2 columns. I can adjust it to 3 if I would like. The gutter is the space between the columns, and I can adjust that. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. So I've got 3 columns here. I'm going to say OK, my black arrow, and I'm going to adjust how those columns wrap. And nice and easily, I've got my 3 columns laid out. I can hit my W button for window preview and zoom in a little bit, and you can see that my text would be much easier to read if I actually knew what the words meant, if I was laying out an ad or a newsletter, for example. Let's go back to our regular view, and I am going to get rid of that text box. Don't need that anymore. I'm going to get rid of the gradient box and just slide the swatches box out of the way here. Whoops. Whoops. Come on back. There we go. Okay. Quickly, lines. Line tool, pretty easy. Click and drag, and you create lines any which way. These are black lines I have drawn, as you can tell by my little color stack here that indicates my line color. If I hold down the Shift key to draw a line, I get a perfectly horizontal line, I can get a perfectly vertical line, or a line that's drawn at exactly 45 degrees. I can take a line and I'll go right across. I can change the thickness or stroke of that line. Whoops, there's the thickness right there under the number value, and I can bump it up to 20 if I want. I can change it to any number of different styles of lines. I can adjust the color of that line through our color stack, and heck, I'll make that red. I just quickly get rid of all these other lines. I'm going to drag them and delete them. And now they've got that that line effect in place, I can use the similar tool that we used in our little font exercise to step and repeat. I can go edit, copy, and then step and repeat. And here I've got 20. I've adjusted the vertical to 1/2 inch and 0 horizontal. Change it to 19 so I don't go as far. I got the preview selected. Okay, and notice how it fills up the whole page with a whole bunch of dots. I might have a dotted background or a dotted texture I want to have. Maybe I don't want those dots as intense, and I can adjust the tint on those and bring it down to maybe 20%. And it creates a nice little background effect. I hit W, click off, and you can see I've got this dotted background. So I'll do that. I'm going to take off 18 rows of those dots, get rid of those, and I'm going to slide this set of dots over to the side there. Come back to Control 0, get my view in there. The next type of line I'm going to draw is a freehand line. And if you come to the pencil tool here, pencil, hold it down and you can actually see that there's the pencil tool. Then I can click and I'm going to hold and I'm going to draw a nice long slow wave. So what it does, InDesign's thinking, oh, you're drawing a path and I'm going to help you, and it's put all these Bezier points on this path. And we can now go into any of these points and we can pull out the little Bezier anchors, which now create the curve that we want to work with. Plus, we can also delete some of these points as well. I'm going to first go to hold down the Convert Direction Point tool, go to the Pen tool. I'm going to zoom in a bit more. And notice what happens when I come over a point. You should get a little minus sign beside your pen tool, and that means that when you click, you are actually subtracting that point from the line. And by doing that, we can smooth out the, Control Z, we can actually smooth out the line a little bit. You have to be very careful to make sure you're actually clicking the point, otherwise it's thinking, oh, you want to add a point. So be very careful as you do this, that you're actually clicking on the point itself. I'm only going to do a few of them just to smooth out the line a little bit. There we go. Now the other thing I can do is I can grab my white arrow and I can click onto any point on the line and I can shift around, click on a point in the line, shift it around, move it into position however I want. Lots of control here. If I need a point with a little bit more bend or a little bit more curve to it, I can hold down my pen tool, go to my Convert Direction Point tool, and I can, so I'll zoom into an element here, and you can see that this point is selected, and here are my little Bezier curves. I can pull those into a shape. I can actually go into another point and I can manipulate those and curve them around more. So I have lots of control on this line. And Control 0, get back. The other thing I can do with this particular line is I can go to my Type tool. I'm going to actually hold down and I get the Type on a Path tool. Now I can add this to any line, any shape. And you'll notice as I come to my particular line, I get the plus sign. That means that, oh, InDesign's thinking, hey, you want to add text to this line. Let me add it for you as long as you click, and I'm going to click. And sure enough, I get my option to start typing. I'm going to zoom in. can type and type and type. And I can treat this path like any other block of text. I can make a change to font size. I can change the type and type style. I can copy and I can go to the back of that and I can keep that going. I can also select the element, and I've gone to my black arrow, and you'll notice that my line is selected. My line is black. I don't want a black line. I just want my text floating in space. And I can do that, and there I have this curvy, wavy path of text. You want to do this very cautiously. I've got a very kind of random line that twists and turns, and you can see that it bends and isn't really consistent with anything. But you can do this on circles. You can do this on ellipses, and it creates a nice. It can create a nice even shape to it. So with that, I'm going to go back to Control 0. I'm going to tuck that off to the side as well. Don't need that. Go to your tool palette, and I'm going to click on our shape. I'm going to grab a rectangle tool this time, and I want you to draw a square. To do that, you need to hold down the Shift key, click and drag, and there's my square. My square has a black stroke and no fill to it. I'm going to take off the stroke, and I'm going to fill the square with cyan. I'm going to zoom in on that square and get in position there. And copy it and paste it. Slide it over just so it overlaps a little bit, and change that to magenta. And I copy that and paste that, and I'm going to change that to yellow. Back to blue, back to the cyan, select that, go to Object, Effects, and Drop Shadow. Drop Shadow creates exactly that, a shadow off that particular element. We can adjust the intensity of that shadow, we can adjust how far that shadow stretches out, and we can adjust the direction of that shadow depending on where our light source might be. Now I'll select the magenta circle this time, and I'm going to go to Object, Effects, and this one is a basic feather. We've seen this in the past as well. I can adjust the amount of feather that's going to happen, which creates a nice almost gradient to nothing effect with that. And I can adjust how far or the width of that particular feather with this tool. Whoops, might be off the video there. There we go, right there. Once I'm happy with that, I can click OK. And in the yellow box, I'm going to click that, and Object, Effects, and this time Transparency. And Transparency, I can adjust the opacity of that particular element. So I can get to 60%. I'll go to 50. 50, right there. Click OK. And now we can actually see through that particular element into the element that's behind it. I'll click W just so you can get a sense without the clutter of our guides in place. Control 0 and W, and I'm just going to load everything up on this page here. Just slide it all up there. There we go. And spin that clover around a little bit, have some fun. Got our big ski there. And put elements back out on the page there. There we go. There, we covered off a lot of different tools, and I don't know about you, but I certainly had a lot of fun with InDesign there, and I hope you did too.